Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. We're shifting gears and we're heading to Saturday college basketball action. We've got some big action in the ACC this week, and we've got North Carolina. They play host to Notre Dame. Guys, we got two teams right now that are going in opposite directions. Notre Dame was the darling for most of the season in the ACC. They have now lost 3 in a row in 4 of their last 5 after losing at home to Duke on Monday night. And we got North Carolina that is playing very well right now. They're coming off a scare, and I'll start with you, Ralph, a scare against my Pitt Panthers that the Panthers, I mean, the only thing I could say is North Carolina was looking right past Pitt because it's total disarray in Pittsburgh right now, and there's rumors that this might be one and done for the Pitt coach Stallings. He's done a horrible job, and he's making everybody really appreciate Jamie Dixon a lot more, who's left and gone on to TCU. I guess going to, the big dance every year and, getting to the final 32 or the Sweet 16, wasn't enough, but they're not even going to get to the big dance.
Well, he was in an unenviable position. I mean, he went from taking Dixon's tempo, which was probably 300 out of 351 teams, to try to play up tempo, and then last week to call his team out and saying they weren't buying into a system in the middle of conference play. Maybe they had a little unity and they played well against North Carolina. But I look at this game and, North Carolina has my number 9 offense. Notre Dame has my number 11. And I'm going to talk the over in what I think is going to be a high-scoring game. The total I expect to be up in the, the 160 range. So I expect it to be high. But North Carolina has scored 90-plus points 5 of their last 8 games. While they're 5-5 in conference play, the 5 over-under, I'm speaking, 5-5 over-under in conference play, the 5 unders are against offenses that rank 9, 11, 12, 14, and 15 of the 15 ACC teams. Now they have Notre Dame. Notre Dame's only been a dog once on the road of over 5 points. That was at Florida State. They are efficient, but they like to slow it down. But when they're on the road or they're behind, they start throwing up those threes much quicker than they're used to, like we saw in Florida State. I'm looking for a high-scoring game. I'm going to call this game to go over the total, despite being in a high 150, 160 range.
Preston, we talked before we came on air. You made this game. Your projection is -10 for North Carolina. I'm a little bit less, -9, just because I think the name Notre Dame, I know North Carolina, big name in college basketball, obviously, but because Pitt was playing so bad, I think the public might tend to react a little bit differently, overreact to North Carolina. Plus the fact this is the biggest dog role that Notre Dame's been in all year. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I fell into the trap last year taking Notre Dame as a double-digit dog at North Carolina and, kind of going with Ralph's over. Careful. I think it was March 11th when they played, but Notre Dame only scored 47. They lost by 31 points. They played 10 days later in the ACC tournament game, and there were more points in that when Notre Dame got points in, but they still lost. I think it was about like 18 or 20 points. North Carolina they're so good at offensive rebounding, and if you can't rebound the ball, even when they miss, they're getting the ball almost half the time. And then they're scoring or getting fouled and going to the free throw line. And Notre Dame just doesn't have the bigs generally to complement, or not complement, but help out and change that Notre Dame wants to do. And if they're hot from 3, great, they might be able to keep within 10. But I'm not backing the Irish, I guess, unless they got to 12 plus or something, which we don't expect it to be that high. So for me, I'll be probably staying away or looking to back North Carolina if it's short.
Yeah, I have a lean to North Carolina. The only red flag I have on North Carolina in this one is what they have on deck. They got their biggest game of the year, rivalry-wise, against Duke. I mean, we know how Duke-North Carolina games are every year, so you might get caught slightly looking ahead. But the fact, what makes me like North Carolina is, like you said, the matchup. They just don't match up well, Notre Dame, with North Carolina. But when you have a team like North Carolina that had that scare, as I like to say, only winning by 2, laying a monster number to Pitt, to me, I like to take that team in the next game because you're going to get total focus out of that team. Coach is going to drill it into them. You had a lackluster game. You almost lost it. You're going to be able to push them a little harder in practice that week. And I think generally you're going to get a little break on the line because the public has a tendency to overreact to it. So I'm hoping to get a line under 10, and I'll be looking at North Carolina.
One thing about North Carolina is with those players, normally a coach has to get on you for having a bad game. Not with North Carolina, not with those Dukes, not with those Kansas teams. Those players are as upset for having a 2-point win over Pittsburgh as their coaching staff. So they will certainly be fired up. I agree with you.
All right, guys. Great stuff. And don't forget, if you're new to Wager Talk, after your first purchase of $50 or more, email support, put your username in the email, and we will put within 24 hours a $50 bonus. That's after your first purchase of $12 or more, we will give you $50 free dollars. It's our way of saying thank you for joining the Wager Talk team. Check it out at wagertalk.com. We'll be back with more here at Wager Talk.